So we now turn our attention to the SDG Impact Standards themselves. This very complex diagram really tries to show how the standard works in relation to everything else that exists in the ecosystem. So the idea is not to replicate nor duplicate the good work of other frameworks. So the standards have really been designed as an overarching decision-making framework that helps organizations look at what is available through the resources, the tools, and the frameworks that already exist, and make choices between them, whether it's the ones available today or the ones getting developed in the future. So in the standards themselves, the focus is from end to end. That is, as you can see in the middle of the slide, with the colors yellow, blue, purple, and kind of Bordeaux color, as we say in French. So so that is, you're moving from strategy through management approach through transparency to corporate governance practices by trying to focus in on the areas that the current high level principles above that, as you can see on the bar, the first bar, that are not focusing on so much. So the gray box in the middle is the standards, and several frameworks are called and are pushed out to, in terms of integrating, for example, as you can see on the box on the left hand side, we have the UN guiding principles for business and human rights, or the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact, the SDGs, as we already talked about, or the impact management project, shared norms, and so on. Then here basically you see the sustainability frameworks. On the x-axis, we have organized the sustainability frameworks according to one, the principles of practice, two, management or decision-making frameworks, as the one that we are talking about today, as you can see in the second column and the first row. That's where you have the SDG impact. Third, you have the metrics and taxonomies. Fourth column is the reporting, and the last column is benchmarking data, index, and rating providers. And then on the y-axis, uh, illustrate that some of these sustainability frameworks are more focused on social and environmental returns, whereas others are more focused on financial returns. And I'll only discuss this at length and provide example of these frameworks during the real 2 to 3 day training due to the time constraint that we are suffering from today. So here you have the SDG Impact Standards for enterprises. So the entry point to those standards was organized, or is organized, around 12 action for the enterprise standards, but it's also equally, you have similar 12 actions for a private equity fund manager or even for bond issuers. We are looking at the enterprises today, as you know. So there is now a diagram around this that organizes the standards and practice indicators around these 12 actions. A self-assessment tool around these 12 actions and the assurance framework is also organized around these 12 actions. Those 12 actions are organized around the four main end-to-end themes that I mentioned just before. That is strategy, as you can see in a column on the right-hand side, strategy, management approach, transparency, and corporate governance. So that when we look at the 12 action, what we are seeing here is, number one, to start with that commitment and the changing mindset where embedding and thinking about sustainability and the SDGs, and where making the positive contribution to the SDG at a high level in terms of purpose of your organization. All of you, since you have all submitted an application for the Earthshot Prize, have already passed the first hurdle, so to speak, or the first step in this diagram. Then the second step is that you think more broadly about sustainability context to identify the areas that are important and where your organization can make the biggest impact. And as you also recall from the questionnaire you had to fill out for the application, this is fully aligned with that. So that is really taking the existing materiality assessment that a lot of organizations do, and making sure that it is taking a somewhat broader view and looking around corners, which can be positive, both from the perspective of anticipating future risk earlier, but also in terms of identifying pivot opportunities and opportunities for innovation to lean into these trends. Then number three, backing this up with setting ambitious goals. So that's number four, in line with and reflecting what has been learned through the previous step 1 and 2 that we just went through, and integrated, and that's step number three, into purpose and strategy of your organization. And then you adjust your strategy and your goal as needed in order to optimize the impact. The remaining steps will be presented during the actual 2 days course, again, because of time constraints. Here you have the SDG Impact Self-Assessment tool, which help you prioritize actions and prepare assurance. So let me just quickly show you what this looks like. So here you have it. So you have this Excel sheet. As I mentioned before, this is a self-assessment, which is organized along the same 12 actions. So first you have the strategy, and within strategy, as mentioned, you have number one, commit to operating sustainably and making a positive contribution. Then you have questions such as how does your enterprise link its approach to creating long-term value for the enterprise with contributing positively to sustainable development and the SDGs. Um, then you move on. What is the current approach for this action? Um, and here, what is missing? So you do a gap analysis from the current approach and the SDG Impact Standards. Um, Here you had what can be done to improve the practice, and then you have the self-assessment is overall how would you respond to questions in the column D, as we saw before. And there's a drop down menu. So you can answer either you say yes, in progress, or no, what plans to do, or other, or needs clarification. Then you have the, in terms of easiness, how easy is it to implement? And here you have 4 categories: easy, neutral, difficult, I do not know. And then you have the value added. So how much value or benefit would your organization obtain by implementing this? Again, you have a drop down menu, which is high, medium, low, I don't know. The value added scores, as you saw here. And then suggested prioritization, so you can rank automatically. So will be an automatic ranking coming here on this cell. And here you can provide evidence, you can upload documents to really put so that this self-assessment is just not coming out of your head, but is actually based upon evidence documents that you can share with the self-assessment. And you can also provide comments and notes, and again, do you use any tools or methodology standards or other for applying this practice indicators? What are some of the challenges, suggestions? Do you have any other comments? And this continues all the way down through, as you can see, the 12 actions with the same kind of questions.